Segment 2, Hitler, Part 1, when stopping him would have been easy. Here's Winston Churchill in 1935. Only a few hours away by air there dwells a nation, Germany, of nearly 70 million of the most educated, industrious, scientific, disciplined people in the world who are being taught from childhood to think of war and conquest as a glorious exercise and death in battle as the noblest fate of man. Now they are rearming with the utmost speed. Churchill, 1935, and Churchill is virtually the only major figure, not just in Britain, but in all of Europe, standing up to Hitler and warning his countrymen of what is coming. Now, 1935 is 2 years after Hitler becomes Chancellor of Germany. Why is Churchill alone?
Well, I don't think he's completely alone. I think there are plenty of people that, don't forget Duff Cooper, who was part of Chamberlain's cabinet and resigned after Munich. He's the only one to resign.
Munic's 1938. That's 3 years later.
But even earlier, you do have people that recognize that for 20 years Germany has been attempting to dismantle the Versailles settlement, long before Hitler comes to power. You remember the famous Marshal Falk, I think, when he heard that Versailles had been signed, he said, "This isn't peace, this is a 20-year armistice." And he was right on in terms of the number of years. There are several, I think, factors at work here. Again, we go back to Thucydides when he says that states go to war because of fear or because of interest or because of honor. What I do in the book is I expand the notion of honor to all the ideas that people live by. You know, we have various ideas, ideals, goals we want to pursue, aims, what we think is the good life, etc. And these include religion. Some of them are good and some of them are terrible ideas. And a lot of terrible ideas became prominent in this interwar period. Two in particular, I think, were pernicious. And we should note, because they're still around today to a lesser or greater extent. One was pacifism. In the 20s and 30s, pacifism was a huge movement, particularly in England. And partly that was the experience of the Great War, which was, you know, unprecedented in the scale of its destruction, in the role of you know, for then high-tech armaments in the destruction. It involved aerial bombardment towards the end. And there was this huge fear, particularly of aerial bombardment. And I talk about that quite a bit because it's important to imagine for the Brits, who were an island always protected by the most powerful navy in the world, now all of a sudden being an island and having a powerful navy doesn't give you that sort of security.
Right.
Because these bombers, they believe, as Stanley Baldwin, the Prime Minister, said, the bomber always gets through.
Churchill's argument throughout this period is yes. In effect, he's saying, yes, I understand. We've just been through the horrors of the First World War, but instead of blinding us to the rearmament of Germany, it should chasten us to act now.
That's right.
The sooner we act, the easier it will be. And in fact, so there may have been others who understood this, Duff Cooper and others, but they never took power. In Britain, certainly, the dominant forces, the dominant figures, Neville Chamberlain, the Prime Minister, the entire establishment was moved toward the pacifist impulse. Then they appeased Hitler in Munich in 19...
Yes.
Why? Why is it the case that they're unable to see what Hitler sees?
Well,
act now, it'll be easier.
First, there's pacifism. There's the idea anything's better than another war.
Which is sheer self-delusion.
Of course it is. Of course it is. There's other things. Second was internationalism that had been developing throughout the 19th century. The notion that globalization, global trade, greater communication technologies, all of this is creating what they called a harmony of interest among all the peoples. And war is in no one's interest. So we can create institutions, international courts of justice. We can sign treaties like the Geneva or Hague Conventions. And we can control war. We can
all this is an elaborate way of sticking their heads in the sand, of refusing to see the reality.
In effect. I mean, it's an ideal. It's idealism. It's misplaced idealism because it ignores human nature. It thinks that violence and the recourse to war is some anomaly in human nature, whereas, as Plato said, the natural state of relations between cities is war, and peace is just a name.